So here we are with our existing conditions photo textured model, and we want to begin to convert this into a render-ready model. So a photo textured model is probably ideal for like the way background buildings in a photorealistic rendering, or to be used for shadow studies and maybe quick elevation studies. But they're not the most accurate models, and they don't render as well as we typically want them to in a photorealistic rendering program like Lumion. So the reason for that is because a lot of the detail is held in these images. And what we need to do now is start to button up these things and push and pull, basically trace the building and push and pull things and give assign depths and dimension and detail. And so then that's going to be part of it, but the other part of it is going to be assigning much better textures. You know, right now we've got like these photographs that have a lot of kind of extra stuff on there. And I mean, sometimes the existing pieces of the building will add realism, but really for rendering, we just want to have like a nice clean building. We don't need to have wires hanging down and all the utilities plugging in. So let's see. First things first, I see two opportunities for components. So whenever we create components, that's for repeating elements, similar elements, and lines of symmetry. In this case, we've got 2 repeating garage doors and 2 repeating windows. So I think what I would do is just draw a rectangle around this one. I'm going to start with this window because it's in the foreground of this photo texture, and same thing with this garage door. The further back you go, you can see it gets a little bit more fuzzy and distorted. So I'll just draw a rectangle here, like that, and then I'll draw a rectangle over here as well. And so I'm just tracing the size of that opening like that. Okay, so we've broken those surfaces. We've got those two. So this guy, I'm going to make it a component, and we're just going to call this one our window. Create it, make a copy of it down the line like that. And then let's do that again over here. This guy, I'm going to make it a component, and I'm going to call this our garage door. We'll say create, and then I'll make a copy of that. So kind of moving a little bit quicker here, but the move tool, I click once to pick it up, tap Control, make sure I'm on the red axis, and click to put it down. So now I've just set up some intelligence there between these two with our components. So let's edit this first component. Now I'll just double click in, and really this window, I think I'm going to go to View, Component Edit, Hide Rest of Model. And I'm going to push this window back by 4 inches, and then I'm going to delete out this first surface here. And let's see. Let's undo that. I think I'm going to sample this material first and then push that back by 4. All right, so now that way I can just like repaint that material on there, because I do want to just see that window for now. Not critical, but really all I want to say is that we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. So what we're going to do is use a plugin called Windowizer, and we're going to make 4 columns and 4 rows. So if I right click and choose Windowizer, Windowize, that brings up, this is a really slick little plugin. I found this on the Ruby Library Depot. I think it might be on Smustard as well. So we're going to do 4 rows, 4 columns. Our frame width, it looks like, you know, this old school window is kind of like maybe, we'll say 1 inch on the frame height. Now the mullions, we're going to do 0.5 inches. So 0.5 inches. And the frame inset, I think 4, let's just say 2 and 2. So I think that all looks good. Let's just run it and try it. And there we go. So now you can see, oh, and you know what happened is it built our window over here rather than, you know, on this side. So I'm going to hit Control Z, undo my windowizer. The reason that happens is if I right click on here and choose reverse face, I need to windowize on the front. So let's just run that again. And what's slick is it keeps all of your original settings. And I can tell you that it looked the mullion, was it the frame inset? I think maybe just 1 inch for those and 1 inch for that. So let's just try that again. We'll say OK. There we go. So that's a lot easier. I mean, this isn't a very complex window to build, but if you're using these little plugins, that just is infinitely quicker to build that window and make it realistic with the depth. And now you're going to get some shadows cast by the inset of the wall there, and the glass is correct and textured. So you can see that's kind of the idea, is that we just trace the photo textured model and then start to model it into a render-ready model. The reason we call it render-ready is because now it has depth and it's going to produce accurate shadows. All right, so let's see. Let's do our garage door now. So here's the basic chunk of geometry that we need for that. And so really this is a simple garage door. It's just got a bunch of, looks like just a bunch of panels that maybe we can just model one as a component, copy it up, and call it good. So what I'll do is I'm just going to push this back we'll push this one back by 8 inches. And I'm going to delete this surface, and we leave this edge intact because that's what it takes for this to cut the opening in the wall. So if I were to delete this edge, if I delete that edge, it no longer cuts that opening. So let's leave that edge intact. Now this, I'm just going to make a copy of this bottom edge straight up. I hold shift to lock my axis, snap it to the top, and let's just say 10 divided by enter. So now I have 10 equal divisions, and this is going to be my component. And we're going to call this our garage door panel. I don't always name my components, but I suppose when we're recording I will. All right, so let me do that again. Sometimes this happens. Make component. This thing comes unchecked. We want to call this, we'll just call it panel. That's fine. Create. All right, so we've got our component there. I can trash all of this stuff and make a copy of this guy straight up by 9 times. And then let's go in there and edit this thing. So now for this, I think I'm just going to offset. Let's offset by 1 and pull the panel out by maybe 0.5. And actually, that offset is let's just undo this. I think I want my offset to be 0.5. So I'll click once to start, call it 0.5, pull this out by 0.5, enter. There we go. Now I'll go to my materials. So I need to choose a color. We'll scroll up to our colors, and I've just got like a simple white. If I hold shift, this is a nice trick. I mean, I could go through here and just click on every surface, or if I just hold shift, it's kind of like a material swap. So I can paint everything with one shot, and now I've got what appears to be a garage door that will render properly. It's going to give us some kind of an indication of shadow here. I'm not too concerned about these lines in between. That's just kind of SketchUp stuff. Once we get into Lumion, that won't be a problem, and actually it'll probably be good to thicken up those lines in between. We'll see how it looks. All right, so now we've got our white garage doors, our glass windows, and we really I showed you in that first tutorial how I created this brick texture, but what we need to do is split up these two brick textures, because from here on up is the one brick and below is the other. So maybe what I'll do is just use my line tool, or actually I'll use my move tool and make a copy of this up by, looks like about, something like maybe 21 or 22 inches, like that. And then I'm going to take this edge here, and we're going to grab, I'm going to pre-select it from my move. I'll grab both of these and make a copy of this straight up to there. Get rid of that. Oh, and you can see that, we've got some stuff happening here because of the way that these components are working. So I'm just going to use my line tool and break these edges, and then, oops, I need to trim that and that. So what we're ending up here with is we're just splitting surfaces, ideally. So I've got kind of this goofy thing happening there. Okay, so I'm just using my line tool to kind of break up these surfaces. Sometimes you just got to do that in SketchUp. Use my rectangle tool. There, that one's divided. This one, I'm just going to retrace this guy with my rectangle tool. Okay, there we go. So you got that one, and that one. And then I also want to trace out, and there's kind of this goofy thing happening too, because I've got that softened edge right here. So we'll just keep that in mind. It's fine that we have that, but it's going to kind of make this a little bit different here. So let's we'll just unhide that for now so we're aware. All right, so the other thing I want to do is with my rectangle tool, I'm going to trace out some more of this detail so I'm not disrupting it when I paint my new textures on there. And we'll come this way, go like this, hover on that, like that. All right, so now we've got this surface. Maybe I'll even draw in the door, like that, like that, like that. And let's trace out some of this other stuff, and then we'll start photo texturing or trimming up those textures. I might draw a guideline here with my tape measure tool, snap it to that point. So I've got my doors kind of on the same finished floor line. This door, it's a little bit distorted. It's like 2'3". I might just take it and use my scale tool, finish the stretch, and then call it like 32 inches, enter. So that way it's a little bit more realistic. You know, we're not doing super precise modeling here. It's just intended to get the broad strokes down. Okay, so we're looking pretty good. So now what I can do is take, I already created this texture, and I can just kind of apply that around here, get rid of some of that stuff. And so now we got rid of the trailer. And then I want to find another good chunk of brick. So maybe, I suppose that this area could be decent. The other thing we could do is use this brick texture and then just colorize it. So let's try that both ways. So one way, the easy way is if I could just grab a nice chunk of texture. And before I do that, I'm going to go back to my model info and turn off our length snapping. I don't really need that anymore. So now I'm just going to trace out this one chunk of texture, make it a unique texture, and now I can sample that and apply it here, here, here. Okay, so that one is actually pretty decent. That is going to give us the look that we want. If I was really getting after it, then I would probably pull this out into Photoshop and just kind of trim up this texture. Let's see, if I click on Edit Texture Image, I don't have Photoshop defined yet. So we'll leave that alone for this tutorial, but you could always pull this out and tweak it some more and really spend a lot of time. You could go and look up brick textures if you wanted to and find something that was just match this brick and it was perfect. But really, I think for our purposes, this is a quick and easy rendering. We don't want to get too hung up on all that. So I'll delete that edge there, go in here. Now you can see that I applied that texture and I kind of broke that, painted over all that extra brick. So let's just go down here and we'll break this surface, and then I'll just come over here and draw another line. So we should be good there. I've got this surface and that surface. So let's do that. Paint there. All right. Looking good. Looking good. So typically, for the RenderReady model, I might just assume that all the trim is the same. So like right now I've got this color 000 for the white. So let's just use our paint bucket tool and get rid of all these kind of faded paint like that and like that. All right. So you start to get the idea of how you can like push these things in. I would just continue to refine this model, continue with your photo texturing, make sure that everything is nice and clean. So, working in here and maybe make a copy of this straight up. So you can see, because I've got this componentized, it's making that nice clean transition. You could even go further, and I don't think that this bottom brick really pops out or anything, but you can work on different details like that. You can always go back to the photographs and kind of get a better picture. If you've got a lot of photographs, like is there a cap on the building? Looks like more of like a soldier course cap. So those are the little things that'll really dial up the detail. If I wanted to get that soldier course cap on there, I could select the roof, deselect the surface, and maybe make a copy of this line work down by 4 inches. And let's see, texture, right click on this surface, go to texture position, right click, rotate 90, right-click Done, and now I can sample this tweak texture and paint it around. So you're really just using all the stuff that you have to give it that look. And keep in mind that this stuff is not perfect. I just kind of grab that, it looks right, so that's good enough. It's going to give me that feeling of a soldier course around the top when I render it, and you can take it as far as you want, but I find that just getting it to a point where it looks right is good enough for our RenderReady model. Now this model would be really perfect for anything that you were going to render, like if you needed context buildings, like let's say for instance we were building something else next door and we wanted this context to really look good in the rendering. Well, this would be the technique that we would use to dial up this model and get it to a point where it could be rendered like that. You'd continue on and add detail here, and let's see, I think I've got this RenderReady model open, so you can see I've added the texture to it, really went through and fixed everything. So don't think that you guys need to see every single step, but I would suggest you take a shot at definitely doing the doors and windows, and then work around it and just practice using those simple SketchUp tools to push and pull and give this thing depth and get it ready for rendering. And you can see here I also added some textures to the roof to give it a little more refined look. So anyway, this is a RenderReady model. Now the next step of this would be taking it into a design model, and I'm not going to walk through how we went through that entire design, but I am going to show you the final design product, and then you guys can either give it a shot making your own design or just take our design model. And I'm going to walk you through using the Condoc tools to set up a presentation packet, and then we're going to get it ready for Lumion, and that'll be the next series of tutorials in this for this model types blog post. So be sure to check out that next tutorial, creating the RenderReady design model, and we'll get that ready for layout and Lumion.